is a very difficult and dangerous line of work. That's our estimate at the moment. Now, in fairness, President Reagan's people, the people who ran his campaign, the people who did his polling, had been saying for a long, long while that they thought they'd pick up somewhere between 12 and 16 or 17 seats. However, in the last week or 10 days, they began to say, well, we just think we might get 26 or 30, didn't they?
Well, a lot of the Republicans in Congress were saying 20. I always thought the White House was being a little conservative, so when we got to 20, we would say it was a major victory. I would say overall the Republicans thought they would do a little better because I think they did see the president's victory. But let me say something even about 14. The president had a lot of very close votes in the last Congress. MX missile, that only passed by one vote. 14 can make a big difference. School prayer, there was a vote on vocal school prayer, denying federal funds to districts that didn't allow vocal school prayer in the schools. That only lost by 21 votes. That's 11, just 11 more Republicans would have helped there.
No question, a pickup 14 would be helpful to the president, but it doesn't speak loudly to his mandate and a mandate for all of his policies. Correspondent Terry Drinkwater talked to Senator Gary Hart, who lost to Walter Mondale, of course, in the Democratic primaries, and Senator Hart told Drinkwater that this does not amount to a Reagan mandate.
Ronald Reagan, there was some discussion earlier this evening about a mandate. Ronald Reagan chose not to seek an issues mandate. He won a popularity contest. By being vague, by being general, he did not put forward an issues or vision for this country's future or issues platform. And so, at most, his victory is a triumph of personality and not of policy or program or direction.
You make it sound as if the Democratic Party were in pretty good health tonight. Now really, what aren't there problems? I understand.
Oh, sure. I think there are problems in our party. I think there are problems in the Republican Party. Everyone agrees that about 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, the Republican Party is going to fly in about 18 different directions as the struggle begins for leadership in 1988. As of 8 a.m. tomorrow morning, Ronald Reagan is in effect a lame duck leader of his party, and everyone agrees there's going to be a tremendous scramble and a much, if I may say so, bitter scramble in the Republican Party for its future leadership than in the Democratic Party.
Our CBS News coverage of what Ronald Reagan's re-election will mean to you continues after these messages.
They call this cattle country. It's also where a lot of America's coal is. So when Sun Company built the Cordero mine here, folks worried about the future of the land. But Sun also developed this land reclamation center to make sure the land is properly restored. At Sun, we think putting our energy back into the land is just as important as getting it out.
Where there's sun, there's energy.
MasterCard, I'm bored. My interest is piqued. MasterCard, I'd follow you anywhere.
You're about to enter the world of a new technology called X-ray microscopy. Developed by IBM research scientists to advance computer technology, it brought them close inside this computer chip, discovering details no one had ever seen before. The scientists then wondered what they would see if they examined blood cells the same way. What they saw fascinated medical researchers. They discovered structures within the living human cell never seen before. A number of medical researchers have already used this new technology to examine sickle cells and cancer cells. X-ray microscopy, an example of how IBM research can contribute not only to business, but to life itself.
Well, part of the story of the night is new faces for the Democrats. Some new Democratic senators have been elected. Gore in Tennessee, Harkin in Iowa. And Bruce Morton, the presence of Gary Hart just a moment ago in that interview with Terry Drinkwater reminds one that Gary Hart is up in Colorado in 1986, might decide not to run. He reminds us the Democratic Party is changing.
Well, he said something about it's going off in 18 different directions tomorrow, Dan, and I think that may be about right. The old Democratic Party, the old New Deal coalition, died. It probably really died in the late 60s, and Watergate concealed that for a while. The most stunning political fact, I think, is that the last time the Democrats on a presidential level carried white voters in the United States was 20 years ago, in 1964. What happened since then, I think there have been what you might call three fault lines in that old coalition. One was when middle-class Americans turned against social welfare programs, spending programs. I think they were for them as long as they saw them as a way for people to get up the ladder into the middle class. But when they began to see them as permanent entitlement programs for the poor, they turned against them. That was one. The second was when the civil rights bills of the 60s pitted North against the South within the Democratic Party. And the third was when the Vietnam War pitted generations, one against the other, within the Democratic Party. All of those things have happened, concealed, as I said, briefly by Watergate. And I think it's not to say that these folks won't vote Democratic some other year if the issues change, but that old automatic, you can count on these groups coalition is gone.
And the greatest support for Ronald Reagan in a day in which he got tremendous support came from white males in this country.
White males, especially in the South, but all over the country.
Well, that brings us to Jesse Jackson, Democrat, who was a candidate for president during the primary campaign. And Jesse Jackson is with us this evening for an interview. Good evening, Reverend Jackson.
Good evening.
It is not a very good evening for the Democrats, and among other things, in virtually every state, working-class whites have abandoned Walter Mondale. Are you one of the reasons they've done so?
Well, of course not. The fact is, this trend has been going on now for 20 years. It did not start this year. And there's a great body of poverty and pain amongst white people that's not been adequately addressed. Reagan somehow appealed to the white male macho and sense of security, whereas we obviously must address it more directly. The record-breaking black vote this time around is the reason why Heflin won in Alabama. He only got 44% of the white vote. The black vote got him over. It's the reason why Gore won in Tennessee. It's the reason why Hunter's put up a fairly good race in North Carolina. So we must build upon this record-breaking black vote. And blacks and whites in this country have converging economic interests. The fact is, in every poverty-stricken category, it's more white than black and brown and more female than male. We must step in that gap and give people a sense of hope and not just allow them to settle for prayer clause and flags.
Reverend Jackson, if a Democrat, someone who really wanted Walter Mondale, were to come up to you and say, Reverend Jackson, after all is said and done, what happened with you is more was said than done, that you didn't really turn out the black votes that you said that you could turn out, particularly in the South. How would you answer him?
It's not true. The fact of the matter is the black vote is the largest and most consistent and loyal block of Democratic votes. Women said, in effect, if you do not put a woman on the ticket, we will, in fact, not support the ticket. A woman was on the ticket. They did not, in fact, support the ticket. The other members of the Democratic family, the women, the workers and labor, the Hispanics, the Jews, and the youth, in fact, stick with the Democratic coalition. We can win. We lost terribly in 1972. We bounced back by 1976. We have reason to know that much of Reagan's perception strength is going to give way to reality in just a matter of months. Tomorrow morning we should wake up, smile through our tears, start organizing for 86 and for 88.
Reverend Jackson, I want to approach this question with some sensitivity. I know you want to answer it with some sensitivity, but on the other hand, let's talk straight, as you always try to do. Does the result of today's election indicate a widening white-black split in this country?
Well, I do not think so. I think that blacks simply voted their best interest. Many whites did not vote their interests. After all, when you have 90,000 corporations making a profit and paying no taxes, and people making 2,000 below poverty paying taxes, that's not black-white. When one looks at 8 million more people in poverty 4 years later, with cheese and butter lines longer without meat and bread, that's not white-black. There are some other more basic problems that we must address. Among others, there are 10 million people unemployed, 12 million working part-time, and we did not tackle the jobs issues head-on. that must be addressed. But I think we must say that Fritz Mondale and Geraldine Ferraro ran a highly spirited campaign, one with great character and great integrity, and we simply must face the fact that we are now at the down part of a cycle, wake up tomorrow morning moving toward regrouping, broadening the base of our party, and showing evidence of our strength in 86, moving on toward 88.
Thank you very much, Reverend Jesse Jackson. Thanks for being with us. Our CBS News
We're going to interrupt the CBS election coverage. We understand there is some action taking place at DFL election headquarters at the St. Paul Civic Center, where Karen Boris is standing by. Karen?
Yes, Dave Gillengrow has just entered the hall. As you can see there, she is making her way toward the podium. They have been waiting here for about a half an hour since it was announced that she would be here. She has just arrived at the podium. They are giving her a strong ovation. It is known here that she has lost this race. Going back and thanking some of her supporters. She has been waiting the results not far from the Civic Center with close friends tonight. I talked to her campaign manager earlier, who said her mood was very good, that she was kind of upbeat, and now getting the ovation from the crowd.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. 5 months ago in June, I stood at this platform and I accepted my party's endorsement. We celebrated a victory and we began a journey. All of you, this party and I did my best. Now the people have spoken. Let me read you the telegram that I've sent to Senator Boschwitz. You have won a clear-cut victory. My congratulations to you and your family. I wish you continued wisdom and courage in helping lead our country over the next 6 years. Sincerely, Joan Grove. No one has worked harder or meant more to me during this campaign than my family. And let me introduce them to you tonight. My parents, Art and Brownie Anderson, and my children who are with me this evening, Michael, Colleen, and David. Let me also thank Steve Novak and the very best Senate campaign staff ever assembled in the state of Minnesota. My special thanks to the thousands of you who volunteered from every part of Minnesota, who gave of your time and your talent and your ideas, and you gave a large part of your hearts to this campaign. Campaigns have to end, but good friendships continue. And I look forward to strengthening those friendships with each and every one of you. Thank you so very, very much for all that you've done. You have done yourselves proud. Tonight I want you to be happy. I know that no one likes to lose. I've run 5 times. The 4 victories were very important, but so is this defeat. Remember that we won a miracle right here in this hall, that we won a decisive victory in the primary, that we spoke to the issues, not images, and I have no regrets. On the issue of arms control, we said that you stop the arms race when you stop building nuclear weapons. on the question of United States forces in the world, we said that force is the last, not the first resort for a more peaceful, humane, and democratic world. Will history prove us right? Of course it will. On the issue of fairness, we said that Social Security must be protected, that family farmers deserve a fair price, that steel workers have a right to fair trade. Could we have said less? We maintained that education is the best investment in our future. That middle and lower income families have been taxed enough, that the government must live within its means, military spending must be reduced, Washington must pay as it goes. Is there any other choice? On the fundamental question of human rights, we said that no one's rights are protected unless everyone's rights are secure, and that's true for all of our citizens. We face the fact that 3 of 4 poor are women and children, and that if the trend continues by the year 2000, the only people in this country who will be poor are women and children. We said that women must have equal rights, including the Equal Rights Amendment, that after 200 years, women deserve to be in the United States Constitution. Our time has come. Not this day, to be sure, but we have arrived. In the long history of Minnesota, dozens and dozens of men have run for the United States Senate. Half of them have been defeated. And though never elected, only 2 women have run, and I will not be the last. I began this campaign a little more than a year ago with a quote from Robert Kennedy, in which he said that every time a person stands up for an ideal, a tiny ripple of hope is sent forth that one day will become a wave. Well, I recall that after the television debate, fathers would bring their daughters to me in excitement to sign the program of the debate. And I remember the words of an older woman who came to me at a senior citizens picnic on the Iron Range who said, "Joan, you just keep after them. You make me so proud." To our mothers and our daughters, to every Minnesotan committed to justice, a journey has ended, but the wave has just begun. Join me, please, in looking forward with hope. We set out to make a difference, and we have, and we will. Thank you.
A very emotional speech from Secretary of State Joan Grow as she concedes the election campaign to Senator Rudy Boschwitz. 8% of the Minnesota vote is in right now as you see Joan Grow getting a hug from Wendell Anderson, the former governor and former United States Senator from Minnesota. Grow and her entourage on stage. I would guess at this point the emotion she showed also has to be felt in the Mondale campaign. Fritz Mondale behind closed doors tonight with many of his own people And my guess is a tear or two was shed there and probably still is being shed.
What figures do we have at this point now?
On the Grill race, actual vote counted figures, only 8% of the precincts reported. Boschwitz not that far ahead, 51 to 48, but everybody's projection system has projected that he will be the winner. CBS projecting his final margin would be 59 to 41, and I'm sure Joan Grow conceding on the basis of that and her own figures.
I'm sure. Let's defer for a moment to our analysts, Ron Hanberg and David Nimmer. David, the battle certainly was lost. It was going to be lost. But for one who waged such a feisty campaign, don't you think aren't you surprised with 8% of the precincts reporting? Isn't she a bit premature in making her concession speech?
Oh, David, I don't think so. I think to motherhood, the flag, apple pie, and Chevrolet, you now have to add plaid shirts, and that's the simple fact. I don't think there's a DFLer in this state who would have beaten Rudy Boschwitz.
Makes you wonder why there was such a fight for the nomination.
Exactly right. And one of the things that I was thinking of from the old days was that in the last 6 years, nobody has laid a glove on Rudy Boschwitz in this state, and that's the simple fact. He's had a free skate in the state of Minnesota. I can't recall a lot of public criticism during his tenure in the United States Senate. And that's a far cry from the way it used to be when George This and George Farr were state party chairman, and they were always called in press conferences every Thursday or Friday talking about somebody, the incumbent senator or congressman.
Both of us remember those, that's right. And those incumbents didn't go for months on time without being attacked in some way. But Rudy Boschwitz basically has been.
I see the woman is going to come back.
It's hard to tell on a night like this, obviously, but it seems clear that the last has not been heard from Joan Grow. She obviously has to run for re-election if she chooses to 2 years from now. My sense is that she has made a mark in this state in this year, despite the defeat. Rudy Boschwitz, to some extent like Reagan himself, I think, was a man who this year was unbeatable.
One of the most impressive things, I think, is the amount of money she's raised. According to DJ Leary, a media analyst, consultant, whatever, she was very impressive in the amount of money that she got out for her campaign, and that was not something, I think, critics of her nomination expected her to be able to do early in the ballgame.
That's right, and especially when you consider that Rudy Boschwitz, spent 4 or 5 times as much as Joan Grow. The fact is, and what's kind of forgotten, is that she was successful in raising a lot of money. Obviously, perhaps not enough, but she did quite well.
Well, that's it from our perch, and we're going to go back to you, David.
Well, you also should note, I guess, that she was able to raise a fair amount of money in a year when Walter Mondale took most of the Democratic money out of Minnesota to his own campaign. More of Election Night 84 in a minute.
A good builder knows the tricks of the trade. First, you buy a McDonald's Happy Meal. Get one of 4 Lego building sets and build one of 4 toys. A truck, a helicopter, a tanker, an airplane. And then you combine sets, and you collect more sets. And the more sets you collect, the more exciting toys you can build.
4 McDonald's Happy Meal boxes, each featuring a different Lego building set. You get one when you buy your child a Happy Meal. Hamburger or cheeseburger or 6-piece chicken McNuggets with regular fries and soft drink.
Look what I built! Kid, I think you're gonna do all right.
When a company gets bigger, it experiences growing pains. The pain of throwing out communications equipment that's suddenly obsolete. The pain of buying new equipment to replace it. Fortunately, there is Centron, the only communication system you'll ever need, because Centron service will grow as you grow, simply, inexpensively.
Hello, George.
Centron Communication System. Growth without the growing pains. Centron, from Northwestern Bell.
Let's see what presidential totals we have now in Minnesota. I can't read that. 9% of the precincts reporting Fritz Mondale has a 58% margin over 41% for Ronald Reagan. ABC has already given the state to Fritz Mondale, his only state outside of the District of Columbia. Quickly, let's look at the 2 judgeships in Ramsey County Municipal Court. Margaret Marinan has a strong lead over the highly controversial incumbent John Kirby. And in the other race, Alberto Miera, who is an appointee of President Reagan, is losing to Tom Wyand of the City Attorney's Office, 51 to 49%. That's 19% of the precincts reporting.
Apparently, some of the polling places in Minneapolis are still open. There are still people standing in line trying to vote at a couple of places in Minneapolis. The voter turnout was so heavy in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, many precincts simply ran out of ballots. We'll be back with more of Election Night 84 in a minute.
WCCO Television, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
CBS News coverage of Campaign 84 Election Night continues. This portion is sponsored by General Motors. Extra time, extra effort, and attention to every detail. GM is committed to excellence. By Sun Company, where there's sun, there's energy. And by AT&T, we're reaching out in new directions. And now from CBS News election headquarters in New York, here again is Dan Rather.
Good evening again. Time and tide running wide for Ronald Reagan tonight, but not, apparently, at least not yet, running deep or deep enough in terms of washing away Democratic policy control of the House of Representatives. Still, a so far unbroken streak of popularity for President Reagan personally. It is 11 p.m. in the East now. Not a single state so far tonight in the Mondale column. He has only the District of Columbia. The polls just now closing in 4 states out west, including the single largest electoral vote block state of California, so the electoral vote total is growing. Ronald Reagan's own home state, California, where Walter Mondale put in a lot of time, money, and effort. Our CBS News exit polling indicates that Ronald Reagan has carried the state of California, which increases his electoral vote total to 474 electoral votes and leaves Walter Mondale still carrying thus far only the District of Columbia with 3 electoral votes. Of the 4 states where the polls have closed at this hour, 68 electoral votes in these states out west alone. 1 state has gone to Ronald Reagan, that's the state of California. The others remain undecided as of now. 3 states out there still undecided. Also undecided, 2 states where Walter Mondale has a chance to stop Ronald Reagan's effort for a 50-state sweep. So far, Mondale has blinking there, the District of Columbia up in the middle right-hand corner of your screen. But let's take a look at Massachusetts and Minnesota, 2 states that have not yet been colored on our map for Ronald Reagan. Here are the tabulated votes in those 2 states. Perhaps the last gasp chance Walter Mondale has of preventing a 50-state sweep. In Massachusetts, 13 electoral votes. This is the way the tabulated vote looks in Massachusetts at this moment. Well, apparently we can't get the tabulated vote up, but at our last report, Walter Mondale was leading in Massachusetts. Now, mark well, that's not to say that Mondale has carried Massachusetts, but at our last count, Walter Mondale was leading in Massachusetts, so he has a chance to carry the Bay State's 13 electoral votes. And in Minnesota, Walter Mondale's home state, with 12% of the precincts reporting, these are actual ballots in and counted, Walter Mondale is also leading in Minnesota. It's still very early out there. So, while Ronald Reagan has carried every state thus far that has been decided, it is not yet assured that Ronald Reagan will get an unprecedented 50-state sweep. Walter Mondale has a chance to carry Massachusetts. He has a chance to carry Minnesota, and he still has a chance. That's all the chance he has in the Midwestern and Eastern part of the country. He still has a chance to carry Washington, Oregon, possibly Hawaii, not considered much of a chance to carry Alaska at all. In Oregon, while we don't have a final result in Oregon in terms of how it's going to go in the presidential election, 3-term incumbent Republican Senator Mark Hatfield, CBS News feels comfortable in saying that Hatfield has won the Senate race in Oregon. That's a hold on to a Senate seat for the Republicans. Hatfield beating Margie Hendrickson, the state senator in Oregon. Now, the picture at this hour, in terms of the presidential race, an absolute avalanche for Ronald Reagan, and the only question seems to be whether or not he's going to get a 50-state sweep. In the Senate, mixed signals, a pickup thus far of 2 Democratic seats, Gore in Tennessee, Harkin in Iowa, unseating a Republican incumbent senator out there, but the Republicans look to be retaining control of the Senate. In the House of Representatives, our latest CBS News estimate is that Ronald Reagan and the Republicans will pick up about 14 seats in the House. That would not, in most people's estimate, give the president a working majority in the House of Representatives. Now, in the state of Nebraska, a state that long ago was put in the Reagan column for the presidential vote, the Democrats hold on to a Senate seat in Nebraska. on the basis of our CBS News exit polling, that is, interviewing people actually left the polling places. Senator James J.J. Exxon, the former governor, holds on to a Democratic seat, beating back the challenge of Nancy Hoke, the University of Nebraska Board of Regents member. So the Democrats hold on to their Senate seat in Nebraska, another place where the president's coattails weren't long enough to bring in a Republican victory. In Wyoming, the incumbent Republican Senator Alan Simpson, as was expected, beats the Democratic challenger Victor Ryan, the chemistry professor from the University of Wyoming. So the Republicans hold on to their Senate seat in Wyoming. Bob Schieffer, how well is the president doing in the Senate races tonight? And double check me, so far we have a net gain of 2 for the Democrats.
I did a little arithmetic, Dan, and mind you, somebody said the reason people go into journalism is because they're not very good at arithmetic. In fact, I think you said that.
It's certainly true in my case.
But listen to this. If the Democrats lose Kentucky and they don't take Illinois, both of those races are still too close, the worst they can do is wind up with a net gain of 1 tonight, and you'd have a Senate that is 54 Republicans and 45 Democrats. If they win those seats, they would wind up with a 2-seat loss for the Republicans. The Republicans would wind up with 53 seats, the Democrats 47. A couple of other little things that come under the adding and subtracting category. As of now, Leslie was talking a while ago about the working majority that they were trying to get in the House. As of now, the Senate is going to be a little more liberal no matter what happens the rest of the night. We did some addition on some of the important issues. On MX, as of now, there are 2 fewer votes in the Senate for MX than there were at the start of the evening. Now, that's based on public positions that people who have been elected to the Senate tonight and people who are already in the Senate have taken. There are 2 less votes for MX there now. On the balanced budget amendment, that's one of Ronald Reagan's pet issues. You notice we middle-aged men have to hold these way out so we can see them. 2 fewer votes for the balanced budget amendment in the Senate now, and on school prayer, 2 fewer votes for that.
Well, the only thing about you're saying middle-aged men, I don't know very many people who are 100.
Back at Channel 4 election headquarters, where we're going to be looking at some fresh returns on the presidential race in Minnesota. 11% of the precincts reporting Fritz Mondale, 57%. Ronald Reagan at this point with 42%. Skip?
The Senate race. Rudy Boschwitz already projected the winner, but actual returns in at this point also show him ahead. There are 11% of the precincts reporting now. Boschwitz with a very slim 3 percentage point lead over Joan Grow, who has already, as you saw just a bit earlier, conceded. Congressional races going on and some very interesting ones there. Down in the southeastern part of the state, DFLer Tim Penny, the first Democrat to hold that seat in a long, long time. Looks like he'll be around for another couple of years. 9% of the precincts reporting right now. Penny is well ahead of Keith Spicer. The 2nd District, Vin Weber, who ran the Rudy Boschwitz campaign in 1978 and put Boschwitz in the Senate, a shoo-in over Todd Lundquist, the North Mankato attorney. The 6th Congressional District, and this is a big one, Jerry Sikorsky, the freshman whip on the Democratic side in the Congress. Right now, 1% of the precincts in. He's well ahead of Pat Truman, 68-32, but that one's much too early to make any conclusion on. In the 7th District, Arlen Stanglin, the independent Republican incumbent, over State Senator Colin Peterson now by 10 percentage points.
Pat Kessler has been keeping his eye on some very vital House seats, legislative seats that have had Governor Perpich worried to death for these last 10 days or so. Any reason for the governor to have some better feelings about that?
Well, as you mentioned earlier, Dave, a lot of people have been out voting late. A lot of people came out today, and many of the polls stayed open, so the returns are coming in very slowly. However, it is inconclusive at this point, but we do have some returns from around the metro area and some of the targeted districts around the state. We have Paul Teedy, the Republican incumbent, virtually tied with Tom Isle, the DFLer, in Pequot Lakes, around that area, District 13A. We're over in District 64B. Dick Cohen has 58% of the vote over Republican challenger Mike Kasinkas with 42%. And in District 1A, we have Jim Tunheim with 57% of the vote over Mr. Kramer, 43% of the vote. These are unofficial figures in District 1A. So at this point, the returns are inconclusive. However, because of the strong vote, the big turnout in Minnesota, and the large turnout we understand in southern Minnesota, the Republicans are saying that this could bode well. Democrats still say, however, that they intend to retain control of the Minnesota House. We will follow these returns all through the evening, however.
And with Mondale appearing now to have won his home state, that could could have some bearing on that as well. We'll have more of Election Night 84 in a minute.
Even the competition shops at Ribnick's.
Welcome to Ribnick Furs. May I help you?
Thanks, we're just browsing.
Look at the selection, and they have twice as many fur coats and jackets as we do. This same coat is $300 less than at our store.
That's why so many people who shop at our store buy their furs at Ribnick's.
At Ribnick Furs, the discount is the difference.
Once you see it, you'll never forget it. Once it gets in your mind, it will stay in your mind. Introducing Calais from Oldsmobile. Brand new for 1985. The impression will linger. The performance will astound. Calais from Oldsmobile. Its good looks will haunt you. But until you drive it, you haven't even begun to get the feeling.
There is a special feel in an Oldsmobile.
Calais.
There's nothing like it in the universe. The Ultronic system. Space-age technology that makes the new Mr. Coffee unlike any coffee maker on Earth. Now, fresh brewed coffee tastes better. And with electronic digital control, your coffee is ready automatically. Mr. Coffee, for the most perfect cup of coffee on this planet or any other.
On the next Hour magazine, our month-long salute to television classics reunites Name of the Game stars Robert Stack and Gene Barry.
Whoever got the idea of putting People magazine together as a real magazine, obviously they took it from us.
Plus the fashion styles of Sophia Loren and Olympic gold medalist Mitch Gaylord on the next Hour magazine with Gary Collins. The best hour of your day. Wednesday morning at 9 on WCCO television.
We're happy to report that the world did not stop turning by this 1984 presidential election. Other news events have transpired locally, nationally, and internationally. Marcia Fleur is in our newsroom to bring us up to date. Marcia?
Yes, thankfully we don't have to say, stop the world, I want to get off. And we're going to lead with a story about a new police investigation into an old case, one that appeared solved after two previous investigations. It involves the death in 1971 of 22-year-old patrolman James Shaw. His body was found in a cornfield near the intersection of Highway 101 and 55 in rural Plymouth. Officials ruled that James Shaw killed himself with his service revolver. Now officials and those close to the case want to know if it could have been a murder.
Shaw was a well-thought-of young officer. He had, earlier that day, had seen 2 or 3 people in short-sleeve blue shirts walking around in that general area.
People who might have been police officers.
Well, they could have been.
Minneapolis police and the state BCA are both involved in this investigation. Tonight, a 35-year-old man convicted of a St. Paul murder is beginning a life sentence. Charles Andrews was sentenced today in the stabbing death of his former girlfriend last August. Andrews claimed the woman died during a struggle over a knife, but a medical examiner testified the wound was too deep to be an accident. No freedom for 2 northern Minnesota tax protesters. Today, Wilhelm Schmidt and Roger Luther were denied bail by a U.S. magistrate in St. Paul. The pair denied violent intentions against IRS agents, but the FBI presented witnesses at today's hearing who testified Schmidt and Luther stored arms in their homes to hold off federal agents. The tax protesters claim the arms were kept to protect the U.S. in case of invasion. The Bureau of Criminal Apprehension will use sonar to search the Minnesota River for children who were possible victims of a Scott County sex and murder ring. BCA Director John Cheetah told reporters the search will begin Thursday. The BCA had earlier dismissed the idea of dragging the river. The Attorney General's office asked the Bureau for help with this set of allegations and with other facets of the state's probe into allegations of child sexual abuse. Talks will begin in Moscow later this month between the U.S. and Russia. The superpowers will discuss how to keep nuclear weapons and technology out of the hands of non-nuclear nations. But Soviet Foreign Minister Andrei Gromyko told a Moscow audience that the U.S. is refusing to talk about a complete and universal ban on nuclear weapons tests. Discovery is on the launch pad tonight, awaiting another takeoff tomorrow morning. The 5-member crew, 1 woman and 4 men, made final preparations today for their 8-day mission. Also today, troubling news about the tiles on the Space Shuttle Challenger, which may prohibit a December flight.
And success is top priority, and we will not compromise safety in order to meet schedule.
On this flight of Discovery, astronauts plan to deploy 2 commercial satellites into space and walk in space to recover 2 others. Centuries of tradition today were blended with modern-age security as Queen Elizabeth opened Parliament in London. Amid threats from the IRA of more bombings, the Queen, her royal heir Prince Charles, and Princess Diana rode a carriage from Buckingham Palace to Parliament. There she gave a traditional opening speech. The heightened security comes in the wake of an IRA bombing in October aimed at killing or injuring Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. Tonight in Tehran, more than 100 passengers are free following the hijacking of a Saudi Arabian plane. The 2 hijackers were overpowered by several passengers. One of those passengers used an axe to attack one of the hijackers. They had demanded $500,000 and political asylum in Iran. It was 2 years ago yesterday that Jamie Fisk underwent a liver transplant that caught the attention of the whole world. This afternoon, Jamie and her family flew back to the Twin Cities for her annual checkup. Her parents say she's doing fine.
She just started catching up hand over fist. Developmentally, height, weight, size, everything. She seems to be right on target.
We think she's doing well, but we're the parents, and it'd be nice to hear it from Dr. Najarian and Dr. Asher that they can give that kind of stamp of approval.
Jamie will be in town through most of this week. The baby Faye is thriving 11 months after the infant received a transplanted baboon's heart. She is described as growing stronger and gaining weight. Baby Faye's parents, by the way, described by hospital officials as low income, are accepting bids from magazines willing to pay for the story, but they are not, according to the hospital, actively seeking to cash in on their baby's unusual story. All is calm on the weather front this election night, but who knows what tomorrow's wind will blow our way. Mike Fairborn is next.
When a company gets bigger, it experiences growing pains. The pain of throwing out communications equipment that's suddenly obsolete. The pain of buying new equipment to replace it. Fortunately, there is Centron, the only communication system you'll ever need, because Centron service will grow as you grow, simply, inexpensively.
Hello, George.
Centron Communication System. Growth without the growing pains. Centron, from Northwestern Bell.
When your business needs a bank, you want one with bankers who understand your business, provide creative ideas, and have the authority to respond quickly. You want an aggressive bank with the strength and expertise to meet your needs and a get-the-job-done attitude. In short, you need the business banks, the first banks. We are the business banks, where your business belongs.
This is Alan. He's sort of my protege. And he's come a long way since I convinced him to abandon fads and start shopping at Juster's. Look at this alumni club suit. Stylish, elegant, yet absolutely businesslike. Say, where were you at 11? Did somebody send you on an errand?
No, I was in a planning meeting with the chairman of the board.
Perhaps it's time I updated my resume. Juster's, for powerful clothes. Maybe too powerful.
With a truckload of new standard features and a price of only $57.49, the new Mitsubishi Mighty Max is tough to beat and easy to own.
Walter Mondale is apparently making his way to the St. Paul Civic Center, apparently to deliver his concession speech. Let's go to Pat Miles over there now. Pat?
He is indeed making his way into the hall, Skip. True to his word tonight, he said he would be here very close to 10 o'clock as soon as the polls closed across the country, and in fact he has arrived here at just about 15 minutes after the hour. Tom Tittum said earlier tonight, when Walter Mondale comes into this hall, he needs us, and indeed he does. He is now making his way to the podium where, awaiting for him there, Wendell Anderson, Mark Dayton also on the podium, of course, Mary Monahan, the state chair.
Where is he?
This entire crowd has waited most of the evening for Walter Mondale to arrive. Most of them not here because of any big party or a lot of excitement going on, but just to show Fritz Mondale that they care about him. I talked to two elderly ladies earlier this evening who've been sitting here since 6:30 this evening, sitting quietly by themselves, just waving American flags. And I said, why are you here tonight? And they said, we're here because we care about Walter Mondale. We want him to know that we care about him. As you can see, Walter Mondale now making his way through the crowd. You can be sure, Skip and Dave, that Walter Mondale, if nothing else out of this campaign, is darn proud that he carried his home state. One of the things that Mary Monahan said earlier this evening was, we intend to win in Minnesota. If we do nothing else, we intend to win in Minnesota, and in fact, it appears now as if they have. So I am sure that Fritz Mondale will make some reference to that fact tonight as he addresses this Minnesota crowd tonight. You can hear behind me the chant of "We want Fritz." With Fritz Mondale tonight, of course, his wife, his daughter Eleanor, his two sons, Ted, William. This, of course, is Fritz Mondale's moment tonight to be here in front of the Minnesota crowd. These are the people that Fritz Mondale has said all along he has worked for.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. A few minutes ago, I called the President of the United States and congratulated him on his victory for re-election as President of the United States. Please. He has won. We are all Americans. He is our President, and we honor him tonight. Again tonight, the American people in town halls, in homes, in firehouses, in libraries, chose the occupant of the most powerful office on earth. Their choice was made peacefully, with dignity, and with majesty. And although I would have rather won, Tonight, we rejoice in our democracy. We rejoice in the freedom of a wonderful people, and we accept their verdict. I thank the people of America for hearing my case. I have traveled this nation, I believe, more than any living American. And wherever and wherever I've gone, the American people have heard me out. They've listened to me. They've treated me fairly. They've lifted my spirits, and they've added to my strength. And if there's one thing I'm certain of, it is that this is a magnificent nation with the finest people on earth. I thank above all my family. How lucky I am. Joan has campaigned with class all over this nation. Where are you? And we're very proud of our kids, Ted and Eleanor Jane and William. Everywhere they went, they got us support. And I thank Geraldine Ferraro. We're very proud of Jerry. Very proud of Jerry. We didn't win, but we made history, and that fight has just begun. And once again, here I am in Minnesota. In over 24 years, never once have the people of Minnesota turned me down, including tonight. Minnesotans, this is a special state, a remarkable state with a special spirit. And time again in the past, Minnesota has led the way for our nation, and I think you did it again tonight. And I want to especially thank my staff, Jim Johnson and the whole crew, my workers and my volunteers all over this country. What a special group of Americans they are. I know what you've sacrificed for me and for my country. And I want to say a special word to my young supporters this evening. I know how you feel because I've been there myself. Do not despair. This fight didn't end tonight. It begins tonight. I've been around for a while, and I have noticed that in the seeds of every victory are to be found the seeds of defeat, and in every defeat are to be found the seeds of victory. Let us fight on. Let us fight on. My loss tonight does not in any way diminish the worth or the importance of our struggle. The America we want to build is just as important tomorrow as it was yesterday. Let us continue to seek an America that is just and fair. Tonight especially, I think of the poor, the unemployed, the elderly, the handicapped, the helpless, and the sad, and they need us more than ever tonight. Let us fight for jobs and fairness. Let us fight for these kids and make certain they have the best education that any generation ever had. Let us fight for our environment and protect our air, our water, and our land. And while we keep America strong, let's use that strength to keep the peace, to reflect our values, and to control these weapons before they destroy us all. That has been my fight. That has been our fight in this campaign. And we must fight for those goals with all of our heart in the future. I am honored by Minnesota, by all the people of this country that have permitted me to wage this fight. What an honor it is. And I'm at peace with the knowledge that I gave it everything I've got. So I am confident that history will judge us honorably. So tonight, let us be determined to fight on. Good night, and God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you and good night. God bless you all. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flight was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? God bless you. God bless you. God bless you.
Well, 22 months ago, not far from here, Walter Mondale told the nation that he was ready to be president. Tonight he has accepted defeat. This after wandering through the snows of Iowa for the caucuses. The only bright spot really in the campaign was a brief blip up after the first presidential debate. From there,
instituted. He never quite recovered. It has always been an upbeat campaign, but it has always been a campaign that has never really been able to score points with the voters. The feeling today was that if they could have hit on an issue, something to rally people around the campaign that might have made a difference, that issue eluded them through this. There was some sadness here tonight and some tears with DFLers, but they find solace perhaps in the fact that Minnesota appears to be going and probably will go for their favorite son, Walter Mondale. Mondale is going to meet with reporters tomorrow morning. We might get some insight into what his feelings are tonight. 24 years in public service from Minnesota. Let's find out what his plans might be. Where does he go from here? Live from the Civic Center, back to you.
And so Walter Mondale has conceded defeat. He stood up there and put up a fairly brave front, I think, David. He must be hurting inside a lot more than he has shown. But again, typically of Walter Mondale, does not show his emotions well, at least not fully to the American public. It may have been one of the things that hurt him in this campaign. Those of us who have covered him and watched him over the years and been reasonably close to him from time to time have seen it. It's got to be a very, very difficult night for him. I don't know exactly what he will do now. My guess is he'll return to Washington, to his home there, practice law for a while, and try to decide whether there's anything else he wants to run for. Let's take a look at the presidential totals now from Minnesota. 15% of the vote in, make that 18% now. Walter Mondale, 58% to 41% for Ronald Reagan. Two networks now have called Minnesota for Walter Mondale, and our own North Star election profile also indicates that he will win the state. So his home state did indeed prevent a 50-state sweep by Reagan.
What are the thoughts of our local commentators, Ron Handberg and Dave Nimmer? Gentlemen, only California can give the number of candidates. Minnesota has had 2 defeated presidential candidates in the last 16 years. It's kind of not unlike the Vikings going to the Super Bowl. There's no dishonor there. Certainly much of the credit is, half the credit is getting there in the first place.
David, I guess you're right. I was just thinking we're 0 for 2 in presidential politics. And the last time around in 1968, I had to wait about 4 more hours before we found out who lost. I guess as Ron and I were sitting here, I thought, well, you score 1 for parochial pride, I think. And I had a sense that that meant something to Walter Fritz Mondale. And I also had a sense that that parochial pride was real. I was driving into work today and stopped at the polling place, and I did run across a couple of people who were talking about how hopeless it was, but by God, they were going to go out and vote for Walter Mondale because they at least had to show him there was something particular and maybe peculiar and maybe special about Minnesota.
Well, and I think Fritz himself tonight said in 24 years Minnesota has never let him down, and I think he feels that keenly. What about his future, David?
Well, you know, I've heard a couple of speculations. One was that Fritz Mondale might be considered to be president of the University of Minnesota, but knowledgeable insiders say no. I can't believe, Ron, that he's going to have a national political future.